Chinese market. Thank you again, because you had a very tight schedule, and you have been able to make it for us. And I know you just came this morning, and you're going to fly back, tomorrow to go to Asia, so that's why we wanted to make it this time. The minister will join us. He is actually in the functions with the president of Gabon, and afterward we will be able to into Riyadh. And whatever suggestions you have, we can, after the discussion, have a compilation of these suggestions, these questions, and afterwards kind of have our white paper for the Chinese market. Thank you again. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the professor.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. The first thing I want to say, if the ladies in the room allow, I'm coming from a country where it's not too warm. I will take off my jacket if you allow me. Thank you very much. Okay, I better go up here. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and thank you again for the very kind introduction. Indeed, this is my first time coming to Mauritius, but only after being here for a few hours already. I know for sure it's not my last time I come here. It's a wonderful place, and from the moment you will come to the airport, you find friendly people. So I even chatted to the custom officer, and he asked me, why are you coming? And I told him about this meeting today, and he said, yeah, there are a lot of Chinese coming, honeymooners, and that's very good. So very few custom officers at immigration chat with you in any place in the world. So that was a very good first impression, and it has been good ever since. So let's see how this is working. Just a second. Normally it's just that this is working. This is not working. This is not working. Just a second. Well, normally you have something to click it to move forward. Okay, I can already tell you what has been the agreement. How we will organize this today is that we will have a first session now where I will give you an overview about development of Chinese outbound tourism all over the world. You see where you are in relation to all the other destinations, and then at about 5 o'clock we will have a short break, and after that we have a second part where we will talk about more precisely what is the situation in Mauritius, how can we move forward, as has been said by the director, how can Mauritius get more Chinese tourists, also maybe how to get the right kind of Chinese tourists here, what is the best strategy forward, and how can all of you and the society of Mauritius profit from this development. And then, so we will finish at about 7:15, and I think afterwards there's a dinner, and then there is a show as well. So I think we will have enough time also to talk, and of course I'm very interested to hear what your experiences are. So I think in the first part it will be mostly me talking, but of course in the second part, well, I'm not a fool to tell you about Mauritius after being here for 10 hours or so. So this will be hopefully an interaction, and I think most of you have experiences with Chinese tourists. So we heard that last year there were 20,000 Chinese arrivals. This year we have probably 40,000 Chinese arrivals. So you all can build on some experiences to start with, and so therefore I'm very interested to see what your ideas and your proposals up to now are. So now I would need somebody giving me something to move the slides. I'll take this on. Oh, you have to do this one? Yeah. Okay. It was there, you just... Yes. Okay. And now we do F5 and then start. Now it's start. Okay. Now it's working. Okay, wonderful. Okay. So, the title I choose is Sustaining the Growth of Chinese Outbound Tourist Arrivals. This is because you are in a lucky position. Not many places on this planet have 97% growth rates. So it's not about how to get Chinese outbound tourists, what I'm talking about very often, but for you is how to keep the momentum you have successfully been creating, and how to increase the positive effects or impacts of the Chinese visitors. So a few days ago in the Radio Rebao, the People's Daily, the biggest newspaper in the world, in the English version, there was an article about island paradise worst Chinese tourists, because there was a delegation from your country there. And so the minister, we are hopefully will have the honor to welcome here today, has been saying, yeah, we are expecting to have 40,000 Chinese tourists by the end of the year. And if you look at the numbers, that seems to be really very likely. And so you can see this is Mauritius, even so it's not the biggest place in the world, is really taken note of and talked about in the Chinese media. So this is what I already said, so this is how we move forward. So let me start by talking a little bit about the past, the present and the future of Chinese outbound tourism. And before that, maybe a few words just about who is talking to you. So I'm the director of the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, which is based in Germany and in China. And we do have also a network of quarterly country partners in different countries. In Africa, until now, we only have a partner for Kenya, for East Africa, but maybe that can be a result of today, that we also create close links with Mauritius. So, a few words about myself. So, I'm a sinologue by training. I traveled to China the first time in 1978, when China looked very, very, very different from today. It's hard to believe it's the same planet. And so I'm your former colleague. So before I became a tourism professor, I actually worked as a inbound tour operator myself for about 10 years, welcoming Chinese delegations. At that time, no leisure tourists, mostly business delegations to Europe. And I had an office in Beijing and an office in Berlin at that time. And about 10 years ago, I crossed over into full-time academics. And I'm a professor for international tourism management at a German university in the north of Germany, and I'm a visiting professor of a number of universities in China and also in the UK. And in 2004, about 10 years ago by now, I started the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, starting telling people the Chinese are coming, the Chinese are an important section of the global tourism development, and they will come and visit us. And 10 years ago, everybody said, you are crazy. This is totally stupid what you are saying. Nobody would believe that the Chinese can be an important source market. That we go and visit China, yes, maybe more people go to China. It's a nice country, but the Chinese coming to us, impossible. That's only 10 years ago. Now they became the #1 source market in the world. Yeah, just to say, I'm also have the honor to be a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society in London, where our boss is the Queen, and I'm a research fellow of the Japanese Society for the Promotion of Science, where our boss is the Emperor of Japan. So I have a lot of bosses. And we, of course, also publish some materials, and we do a magazine, which is called, online magazine, which is called the China Outbound Market Intelligence. And just before I came here, we finished the October issue, and we have agreed with our host that you all get a free copy of that if you tell me your email address, you will receive that. And also, another thing I can tell you is that from now, actually it has been activated yesterday, I have been invited to have my own China tourism blog at Forbes.com, of the Forbes magazine. And so hopefully tomorrow morning I will write my first blog for Forbes, which has, I think the website has something like 300 million visitors a year. And of course the first blog I will write will be about Chinese outbound tourism to Mauritius. I hope you're happy about that. So, good news. So the Chinese government, and I'm sure Ambassador Li will support that point of view as well, is supporting the development of outbound tourism. So maybe you have seen from the newspaper that since this year we have a new government in China, and Xi Jinping the new leader of China, has started a very strong campaign against corruption, against too much public spending for banquets and cars and unnecessary stuff. But outbound tourism has been clearly exempted from that. And actually, in April this year, President Xi spoke positively about outbound Chinese tourism being a way to cement the friendship between the Chinese and other countries, and has been speaking positively about this. This is the first time ever that this is happening on this very high level. And of course also the China National Tourism Administration, which is a kind of ministry for tourism in China, has been saying we continue to promote the traveling of Chinese people abroad, which until a few years ago was not really so actively promoting this development. So I'm sure you all read in the newspapers that the Chinese economy is not growing strong as it used to be with double-digit growth rates. So we are now down to 7-point-something growth rates, which is still very impressive. So of course in Europe we would be very happy to have this growth rate, but compared to what we had before, as you can see at the bottom, so it is of course less than before. And you can see that the HNWIs, these are high net worth individuals, that's a polite way to say the rich people, the fat cats, are getting nervous, and there are a lot of rich persons in China who are thinking about having a second home and thinking about actually emigrating, or at least having an alternative. And if you look at the real estate market in many countries in the world, there's a lot of Chinese investment in London, in Paris, in Toronto, and other places. And it was better before. Yeah. And almost all rich Chinese people send their kids, normally just one, abroad to study outside of China. This is almost the norm. So, but even so, the economy is slowing down. We see that and this is the Shanghai Stock Exchange Composite Index for the last year. So you see, since the year 2009, 2010, there was not much money to be made on the stock market anymore. Sorry. So even so, the GDP growth is single digit. The growth in outbound tourism still stays double-digit growth, and I will tell you in a minute why this is the course. What is the reason for that? And the result is, as I'm sure you're all aware of, that this year China was officially declared by the United Nations World Tourism Organization to be the #1 country in both international travels, which is 83 million border crossings, which is something normally politicians are interested in, governments are interested in arrival numbers. But in the tourism industry, we are actually more interested in turnover, how much money they spend, but also in terms of how much money is spent. China became now clearly the #1. So on the left-hand side, you can see the orange line going straight through the roof. This is China. So last year, this is in euro, Chinese spent 80 billion euro for international travel, whereas Germany and the United States both spent about 63, 64 billion. And the old markets also, I think, for Mauritius, like United Kingdom, France, Canada, Australia, Italy, you see that their growth has been much less pronounced. Or in some cases, like France, even going down. So CNN in April, at the back of these numbers from UWTO, proclaimed the age of China, that now China is leading global tourism. Of course, well, you have to be careful, again, as usual with statistics. 90% of these outbound travels are actually happening inside Asia. So don't get too carried away by the numbers, but of course also for us here there's enough left of it. And you can see this was the first time CNN asked us to do an interview and do an article, and I can tell you that ever since my telephone didn't stop ringing from journalists from all over the world asking what about this China outbound tourism, why are the Chinese suddenly traveling so much. Of course it's not so sudden, but the attention of the international community and of the international media has been growing very, very strong since the beginning of this year. And so the fact that Forbes now decided we need a blog on China tourism development is, I think, also a witness to that. Let me try to put 5,000 years into one slide. Where are the Chinese tourists coming from? From their own idea about what is traveling all about. So, travel has always been very important in China, in imperial China, as a education process, as a self-education process, as a process of growing as a person by traveling and interacting with the nature. But there's no tradition in the Chinese history of outbound travel. So in the Chinese tradition there's no Marco Polo, no adventurers going to find riches somewhere else. There is no Ibn Battuta, the famous Arab traveler who went at about the same time as Marco Polo to see how the Muslims all over the world are doing, and who also went all the way to China. Or there is no Charles Darwin or Alexander von Humboldt going around the world to find scientific information. There's no Matteo Ricci or other missionaries traveling to other countries to preach the gospel, to bring Christianity to other people. Nothing like this happened in China. You had a few exceptions. You had many years ago some Buddhist monks going to India to fetch the scriptures, and of course for this part of the world here, most important, Zhang He, the Christopher Columbus of China, the admiral, actually conducted a number of travels at the beginning of the Ming Dynasty from China, reaching actually Mombasa in Kenya in 1415, but after that that ceased again. And so for the Chinese outbound tourist to learn how do I behave as an outbound tourist, this is something which has started 10, 12 years ago. It is something new, and the Chinese outbound tourists are still learning. There are no role models, and there are now, it's starting now that you have the first young people who have been traveling with their parents already when they were a kid. So they have experience being an outbound traveler from childhood, which is for your majority customers, for the French people, the British people, the American people coming here, the norm. So those who can afford to come here from far away, almost certainly they have been traveling already when they were 8 years old or 10 years old with their parents. For Chinese, this is not the case. This is just now starting. So tourism was not that important in China until recently, certainly not outbound tourism. You see it at the bottom, on May 19th, 2011, which happens to be the May 19th, the first day when Xu Xiangke started to write about his travels. there's now the Tourism Day in China. This was introduced 2011, 2 years ago. Before that, the Chinese government didn't think it's necessary to have a Tourism Day. So we talk about very recent developments. So again, very, very briefly looking at the development until today. So before 1978, in Maoist times, the first time when I came to China, certainly tourism was seen as a bourgeois activity, and in Maoist thinking, leisure did not exist. Everybody wanted to work 24 hours, 7 days a week for building up the motherland, and the idea of leisure was something which was connected to the Western, to the capitalist society. So there was no idea of traveling, of tourism at all. So only with the start of the reform and opening policy under Deng Xiaoping, this thing started. And in 83, 30 years ago, the very first few people were allowed to travel across the border to Hong Kong to visit their relatives. And of course, with the start of the economic development of China inside the globalized economy, the first delegation started. So this is where I earned my money from in the 1990s, business delegations to organize joint ventures, or for instance, I worked a lot with Siemens company, German engineering company, and we helped them to build the first metro underground rail systems in China, and there are a lot of business delegations going back and forth for that. But only from 1997, so that's about 15 years ago, you have the start of leisure tourism. In 1997, the Chinese government for the first time published provisional regulations for self-paid leisure tourism out of China. And this was more or less the base for Chinese outbound tourism until 2 weeks ago. On October 1st this year, China got a tourism law. So since 2 weeks there is a law about tourism in China. Very, really recent. So, but from 1997, the idea that somebody wants to travel just for fun to another country became officially accepted by the government, before not. And there was a period of very chaotic growth, and China developed a system called ADS, Approved Destination Status System, which was only for group leisure tourists traveling to other countries. And by now, almost all the countries in the world have this, so it has become almost irrelevant already. And you can see on the right-hand side the numbers. So we were still talking about growth, but about much smaller numbers than we talk about today. And in 2005, you saw that there was people starting to be repeat visitors, going to new places and gaining experience, being able to compare different delegations, and the tour operators in China, the outbound tour operators, started to develop more programs. And from 2011, only a few years ago, we can see what we call the second wave of Chinese outbound tourism, which means now we have a lot of people who have been traveling already a lot. More and more people travel organized by themselves. So especially for the upper end of the market, for what we are talking about here, the tour operators become less and less important, or they become more and more like a travel agency and not really like a tour operator anymore. And you have a clear segmentation. So I will talk about this in a minute, so that the Chinese outbound tourist is no longer existing. You clearly will have to look at what kind of customers you want here. And for a place like Mauritius, where obviously your carrying capacity is limited, this is very important to say, okay, we want to have more Chinese tourists, but what kind of Chinese tourists you want, because there can be too much of a good thing as well. And on the right hand side you see the numbers. 95 million predicted for this year, so it's growing and growing. This development again, just briefly looking at this, has been demand-driven. So, in '89, we had the Tiananmen incident in China. We had in my hometown Berlin the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the East-West bipolar system. And before half of the world, the people in half of the world were not allowed to leave their country just like that. After that, it was only Cuba, North Korea and China left. So something had to be done, and the Chinese government reacted to that demand in a sensible way. And so we can see that in about 10 years ago, the Chinese government changed that tack from saying we want to keep the gates as closed as possible into saying this is an instrument we can use, this is a soft power instrument. We can create friendship, especially with smaller countries, by saying, yeah, we will send our tourists to your place, you can earn some money from us, so that will help us to have a better image and closer understanding between the people when we have Chinese people actually coming and visiting many different countries. So this year, 2013, with the new leadership in China, has seen again a shift towards a more stronger support of official travel, that this is not only tolerated but actually officially encouraged. One point you have to know when we talk about outbound tour operators, all these companies are Chinese companies. So foreign companies, international companies are not allowed to do outbound tourism. There have been, two years ago, 3 exceptions. There were 3 companies which were given a license: TUI, China, German-British company, American Express, Mexico, and JTB, Japan Travel Bureau. But all 3 of them decided for the time being, because of all the economic trouble they have at home, and of course 2011 for Japan was Fukushima year, that at the moment they don't want to invest a lot in China, so they have not acted on the licenses. So if we talk about organized tourists, about tour operators, all your business partners in China are government-owned companies and Chinese-owned companies only. So again, looking at the numbers, you can see this very fast growth. So the last red column on the right-hand side, this is January to May 2013. That's the last officially published number from China. 38 million border crossings. That's already more than only 7 years ago, in 2006, was the total annual result. So there is the only year where there was only a little growth was in 2009, Lehman Brothers, global economic crisis. In all the other years, you see a massive growth, and we are expecting at least 95 million outbound travels in this year. So next year, certainly it will be way beyond 100. So, and looking at more closely at some of the countries, and of course this is a slide everybody here will look at very happily, because your growth rate is the biggest of all. We can see that a lot of other beach, or to a big part beach destinations like Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, have also gaining a lot. Thailand has almost doubled in the first half of 2013 again the number of visitors, as they doubled in 2012, based mostly on a movie called Lost in Thailand, which was very, very successful. And I just learned today that there might be a similar success possible for Mauritius, because there's another movie shot here, which is a very smart move if this can be pulled off to support tourism to Mauritius. So, but you can see that there are a number of places which have more than 20% growth. The only exception, the only country which has a negative growth is Japan, because Japan had very good numbers in 2012, and then in September last year the conflict over these islands in the middle between Japan and China came up, or became stronger, and now at the moment it's not really politically correct to travel to Japan for leisure. So this is the percentages, and we also can see that Hong Kong and Macau, which are still taking more than half of all the international, the Chinese arrivals, are growing, but growing slower, growing less than the other destinations. So the importance of Hong Kong and Macau is decreasing. It's still more than half of arrivals, but it used to be 2/3, and they are growing below the average growth, which is about 17% for this year. And on the right hand side you can see in absolute numbers, that means for a place like Thailand, for 2014 the forecast is that they will have 6 million Chinese travelers, which actually had the result that in August, 2 months ago, the Thai government stopped negotiations with the Chinese government for visa-free travel to Thailand, because they said, we are coming to the point where the Chinese are killing our other markets. The Chinese are so dominant that the Western tourists feel pushed to the side and are not coming anymore. So we have to look at carrying capacity, we have to look at the right mixture of different source markets. And I think this will be a topic, we will talk about this later, I think, which also will be interesting in the future and for Mauritius, and where you can avoid making mistakes other places have been making in the past. And also South Korea, I just have been last month in Seoul for the WTTC Asia Summit, where Tony Blair was telling us that the more tourism the better. I'm not sure if he's right again. South Korea now has 5 million visitors next year. This year they have already 3.5 or something like that. So, and you can see that for Chinese now, second wave of outbound tourism, a trip to Seoul has stopped to be anything special. So when I was doing this job in the 1990s, my customers, most of them came for the first time ever out of China, and many of them were convinced this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was something very, very exciting, very complicated to get a passport, to get hard currency, to get the permission. This was all very, very complicated and a big, big thing, and very different from traveling inside China. Nowadays, if you live in Beijing, it takes 2 hours to fly to Seoul, and there's an aircraft leaving every 30 minutes or so. It is, compared to going to the south of China from Beijing, it is faster, cheaper, and in South Korea, the infrastructure for Chinese tourists is in a way that you don't need to speak any word of any foreign languages. Everything is there in Chinese and is done the Chinese way. So it becomes being anything special. Feels for the affluent Chinese persons more like, I don't know, I travel from Hamburg to Paris. This is nothing you're really excited about. And of course, Mauritius, January to September, I was provided, thank you very much for that, with the latest figures, plus 97%. So 97% growth is, of course, wow. And you have more than 30,000 arrivals under your belt for this year. This is a very good result, and obviously you did a few things right already. So, summing up the situation today, where are we now? China is the global #1, but only, of course, upper class people traveling to Europe in that case, and to a smaller degree, of course, also to Africa. So, 83 million border crossings, $102 billion spent. And even if we take out Hong Kong and Macau, because of course Hong Kong and Macau are special administrative regions, in some way they are China, in some way where they are not China. Even if we only look at the travel beyond that, we still have 30 million travel, which is still double the number of the Japanese outbound trips. And of course, one thing very important for you to be aware of, we always talk here about the Chinese. Who are we talking about? We talk about maximum 5% of the Chinese society, the top 5% of the Chinese society. which is 65 million people, which is more people than there are in the UK, more people than there are in France. But be aware that everybody who's coming here, every Chinese person you see in Mauritius, at home is a big guy, is somebody who's used to being treated very nicely, is upper class person. A lot of journalists like to write about the new Chinese middle class, which is a polite way of saying something. There is almost no middle class in China. We have a lot of people in China, 1 billion or more, who have enough to eat, a roof over their head, electricity, a street leading towards their village. Their kid can go to school, which is a great, great, great achievement. This is the first time ever in the Chinese history that there's almost nobody in China waking up in the morning who has to fear that he will be hungry in the evening. This is a big achievement, and the world can be very thankful for that. We don't have to care about that 1 billion people. And if you compare this to your neighbor India, you can see the difference very easily. But these 1 billion or 1.2 billion people are far, far, far away from ever traveling to here. Most of them are even far, far, far away from ever traveling to Beijing or to Shanghai. And certainly more than half of all the Chinese are even far away from ever having the resources to travel just to the provincial capital. Even this is out of the question for the majority of the Chinese people. So we are talking about the top guys, people who are used to be treated very nicely and with very much reference at home. So they might walk around here in shorts and don't look very important, but be aware at home they are. So the number for people who have a private passport in China is 3%. This is last year's number, maybe not 4%, but this is no more than that, have a private passport, and if you want to travel beyond Hong Kong, Macau, you need a passport, obviously, even in places like your place. Fortunately, you don't need to apply for a visa before anymore. So therefore, this is really something to keep in mind when we talk about the Chinese customer. This is not middle class. This is not somebody in Germany, my home country, or in the UK. If you want to come here for your honeymoon, well, you will have, as a normal person, you will have to save money, maybe for some time, maybe for 2 or 3 years. If you want to come to a beautiful place like this one we are in here today, the Club Med, but it's possible. So, being a normal guy working in the Volkswagen car factory, you can save money and come here. So this is middle class. In China, this is not possible. So if you earn $500 a year or $800 a year, how can you afford that? So we have on the top end about 1 million households which are really very rich. They have more than $1 million US dollar, so they're US dollar millionaires. But of course, this is 3 per mil, so 3 out of 1,000 households in China. How is this possible if we have 83 million travelers? And if you read newspapers, they all say, oh, last year 83 million Chinese traveled internationally. No, there were 83 million border crossings, but a lot of Chinese people travel several times a year, like I think most people in this room are doing. So, and we have people who travel 200 times a year. If you live in Shenzhen and you work in Hong Kong, you have a Chinese passport, you go over the border every day, you're counted 200 times. If you are a small trader, you live in Hefe and you go over the Amur River to Blagoveshchensk on the Russian side, selling socks or scissors or something, going in the morning to the market, coming back in the evening to sleep in China, you're counted every day. So if you do this Monday to Friday, 200 times. So, and of course there are business people travel on business 5-6 times a year. There are rich people traveling for leisure 3-4 times a year. So the average number of the millionaires outbound travel is 4 times a year. So this 83 million border crossings are not 83 million different people. That would be 6% of the Chinese society. There are a lot of frequent travelers, either just for working, just crossing the border, or people important or rich enough to go often abroad. Don't forget the Chinese are investing a lot all over the world. So we have more and more Chinese companies. Well, your continent, Africa, has seen so much Chinese investment. There are so many Chinese people. I saw a number, at least 1 million Chinese now living in Africa. And of course, they go back and forth, and they have people visiting them. So this is still a tiny majority. So for most of Chinese people, their first international trip is still ahead of them. So what we see is an increase in segmentation. So the Chinese are not growing just more people, but they are becoming more diverse. So we still have first-time travelers. This is still the biggest group of people traveling for the first time, mostly now coming from second or third tier cities, so small cities, which in China means only 5 million or only 8 million inhabitants. But we have an increasing number, and average about 30%, who are experienced repeat travelers. And so we do a lot of market research for companies, for destinations in China, and you can see that everybody who is anybody in China has been already abroad, has been already to America, has been already to Europe, and is now looking for other places to travel to. So these people are different. Many of them have been students overseas. Most of them speak good English. And they are moving away from this idea, okay, I go there, take a photo and do some shopping from a shopping list and then go home again. So I only do this to tell my friends, hey look, that's me in front of the Eiffel Tower. So you see the more experienced traveler moving from sightseeing, of just going somewhere to tick off the important places, to experience seeking. Very good for Mauritius. That's exactly what you can offer. So, and then move away from package tour to self-organized tours or privately organized group travel. If they go to a travel agency and say, you do something for us the way we want it. But a package tour where you travel with people you never met before, this is something which is still happening and is still the majority of the market. But if you want to brag, which is a very important reason for trying to travel, if you want to brag about what you're doing, a package tour is no longer as sexy as it used to be. Very important for us here, that means the travelers are no longer a hostage of the tour guide. So in package tours, we very often have the tour guide telling people where to go, where not to go, where to shop, because that's where the tour guide gets permission, and where not to shop. With the traveler being more experienced, having more information, they decide for themselves where they're going. And you can attract them to come to out-of-the-way places, to places which are not mainstream, and certainly Mauritius until now for Chinese people is not a mainstream place. So if you do it right, you can attract them to come here, and they were not told, no, this is not a good place because I don't get permission here, or I don't get enough margin as a tour operator here. So, well, I better speed up a bit. Why are the Chinese people traveling? They travel for prestige and for respect. So it's if you talk to Chinese customers and to Chinese travelers, you very often see that they say, okay, I want to show the world that China is now so strong and big, we can afford to travel, and I want to show to my friends, and I want to show to myself. I made it. Hey, look, I can afford that. And certainly, I think in Mauritius you have a lot of honeymooners. Well, this is a very nice thing to say, the lady you want to marry. Well, if you marry me, I can afford that you go for honeymoon to the wonderful island of Mauritius. So this is something which is not only fun, it's also gaining prestige. And as I said, we have a new tourism law now under operation since 2 weeks. The law says explicitly Chinese tourists are representatives of China abroad. That means they should behave well. So there's a long list of what you should not do as a Chinese person traveling abroad. Not spitting, not jumping queues, not speaking too loud, not walking around in your pajamas, long list. Not walking backwards, which is a Chinese health exercise you can see on the street everywhere in China, but they said the foreigners will think you're crazy, don't do it. So this is by law, a Chinese tourist has to see himself or herself as an ambassador of, not a real one, I don't have one here today, but as a people-to-people relation ambassador, so they better should behave themselves. And this is something also the Chinese see themselves in such a way. So there was a funny story last month on the news that there was a first-time traveler group from some smaller place in Zhejiang province traveling on a Singapore Airlines flight, and they were given in economy class in Singapore Airlines real steel cutlery, so not plastic spoons but real cutlery, and this was a big group, 50 people, and they said to the stewardess, we want to keep the fork and knife, we don't want to give it back to you, when they were collecting the trays. And she said, no, you have to give it back. I said, no, somehow our friends have been traveling before and they also kept it as a souvenir, they showed it to us in our town, we also want to keep it. And they were just refusing to give it back. And well, if one person is doing this, okay, but 50 people? So in the end what happened, that a tour guide from another tour group, another Chinese, he came up to these people and said, hey, you are giving China a bad image if you do that. If you behave so badly, the people will think badly about China. And this argument did the trick, and they gave back the forks and knives to the stewardess. So this is something which is really very, very important. Of course, again, experienced travelers will know that you buy the meal, but you don't buy the cutlery, even in business class. And of course, the other point is that a lot of Chinese have the perception that we are trying somehow to keep China down. We are envious about their success in the last years. There is still racism, anti-Chinese feelings, and so there's, for many Chinese travelers, they're coming with the expectation that, oh, maybe they treat me not as good as they treat the Western people. They come here and they think, oh, maybe if there's a French guy at the reception and me as a Chinese, they will treat the French guy better than they treat me. So we have to be very careful to treat them even better than anybody else, because they are expecting the opposite. And so respect means respect for the person and respect for the culture, for China. So we see very often that now with the more experienced travelers, with the younger, better educated travelers, they speak English, but still they say, hey, you have a brochure for your museum, for your hotel, in French and in Italian and in Spanish, and maybe even in Japanese, so then you should have one in Chinese too. Not because I need it, I can read the English one, but some other Chinese may not be able to read it, and if you give the face, this respect, to the other people, then you also should give it to us. So have, and even for breakfast, they eat muesli or they eat fried eggs. Still they say, hey, you should have Chinese breakfast in your hotel. Even I don't eat it, or only sometimes. But we are part of the global culture. Our food is as good as other food. Why don't you have Chinese stuff also on your breakfast buffet? So a good friend of mine is living for 20 years in Germany, and he's not even a very big fan of the Chinese government, but he said he feels it very stupid. He says every time he sees a Chinese flag flying, his heart feels warm. So even so, he's rather critical, but he says, well, he can't help it. That's the way he was educated, he was brought up. So this idea, so for me, I have to admit, if there's a German flag flying outside here or not, I don't care at all. So I don't even notice if there is one or not. I don't care. For Chinese people, this is still something very, very important. And of course, if you can tell a Chinese celebrity has been staying in this place, this will be for many Chinese people the main reason to come to this place themselves. So for Chinese traveling abroad, traveling means a kind of investment. So investment in their personal prestige, so they can tell their friends, I've been there, and Mauritius certainly is a prestigious place to go to. for their self-esteem, for their social capital. The next party back home, they can show the photos, or the moment they are here now, probably it's not the next party anymore, it's your social media Sina Weibo account, you put the photo right up the minute it's happening. It's about learning, but it's also more and more about business opportunities. Well, this place belongs to Chinese people. We are in here. So investment in real estate, investment in companies is getting stronger and stronger. So this is an example from Australia, from Queensland. You can see foreign investments in Queensland property. This is for last year. China beating everybody else, hands down. So if this is investment, then we as a tourism industry, we should give them a return on investment. We should help them. So to give them value for money and for their time, and time is what they have even less than money, or money they have, but time they have not. Give them the quality, a guarantee of the quality they will get from their quality from their point of view. Don't waste time. Do as many things as possible in the time available. And if they want to brag about, then give them something to brag about. So what is the best, the oldest, the most typical, the unusual you can give them. So give face to everything which is China and Chinese. So last point, and then we have a break. Looking into the future, well, in China things are moving so fast, even 5 years from now, or 4 years from now, 17, from 13 to 17 is already a long time. If you look at China outbound tourism 2009 and look at it today, it's a totally different story. In 2009 I was saying totally different things from what I'm saying today about China outbound tourism. So there's no point in saying what will happen in 2025 or 2030 or nobody knows. For 2017 I dare to say that there will be, even with a slowing Chinese economy, and there will be probably more economic problems for China in the future, because there are a lot of debts, there's a lot of investment which will have no return on investment inside China. There will be a growth of outbound travel, because for the people we are talking about, even a slowing down of the economy will not mean they cannot afford to travel internationally anymore. So they might, instead of a 80 square meter apartment in Shanghai, they buy a 75 square meter apartment in Shanghai, and this 5 square meters less will pay for 10 trips all over the world, don't worry. So we will talk about 170 million outbound border crossings, doubling the number from today. And there was a conference I attended last month in Beijing from the World Tourism Cities Forum, started in Beijing, and a friend of mine, a tourism scholar, Wei Xiaoan, asked the mayors of many big cities from all over the world who were there, hey guys, now we talk about 100 million Chinese tourists, not so far in the future we might talk about 1 billion outbound Chinese tourists. Are you prepared for that? What will you do if there's 1 billion Chinese people traveling around the world? And so this is something where we have to look at getting more people, but also we see what happens if there too many people are coming. And certainly this, as we saw from the numbers, the importance of Hong Kong and Macau as destinations will become smaller, so more than half of these 170 million people will actually travel outside Greater China. And package group travel will be seen more and more, even more than today, as the less prestigious travel form. This is, for many people, the first time. So from our research in Europe, there are a lot of people saying, when we package tourists we interviewed in Europe, they were saying, yeah, I know this is not the best way to travel, but I don't speak English so well, and that's the first time. So this is the first time I travel with a tour group. It's also cheaper. But next year already we said, well, my friend has a daughter who is a student in Finland, and she will come and show us Europe, and we will travel by ourselves. So this is something where clearly this is for the less educated, for the lower end of the upper class, but for the more sophisticated travel. And year by year, obviously, people gain more experience just because time is passing. So there will be self-organized or customized group tours. And tour operators and tour guides will stop to be the dominant force, especially in the high end of the market. And a lot of people I talk to are saying, yeah, now the Chinese have some very different behavior from other customers, but this is because they're not experienced, it's all new, but over time they will learn and they will become normal. And normal means like us. And my answer is no, this will not happen. So the Chinese travelers will insist more and more, and they are insisting already now, more and more on China-specific offers of things are done the way they want them to be done, because they say, well, we are the biggest, we are the most important customer group, so you should things doing for us. And so this morning when I came here, I met an English tourist who told me he was so surprised there are so many Chinese people here. And he said, well, actually they do the announcements here in English, French and Chinese. And I told him, yeah, probably when you come next time, they will do the announcements in Chinese, English and French, in that sequence. So that is what you will see next time. So this is something, even somebody, as I said, who speaks English will still be saying, hey, we want to have it in Chinese as well. Many of my Chinese friends tell me they like to use Kuala Lumpur airport, because in Kuala Lumpur all the announcements are made in Malay, Chinese, English, in that sequence. First Chinese, then English. And they take note of that, and for them that's very, very important. They like that. So what you need, of course, is, we will talk about this more, to show your commitment, to train your people. And well, this morning for breakfast I heard the waiter saying, "Xie xie," thank you very much, to some Chinese guests, and our host, I heard him say, "Ni hao." So obviously there's some training has been happening here already. Show your, use quality labels. Well, we do one, but also other organizations do things. Use positive social media, user-generated content. People talk about you. So adapt your product, commit yourself to the market, because this decides if you are a hot or a not destination. So, and now this is, I promise, the last slide for the first part. 5 insights about the second wave. First, the Chinese market is there, it will not go away. It is something you have to react to say, well, I don't look at it, it's not an option anymore. Second, don't believe in averages. We are not talking about the average Chinese traveler. So the average Chinese traveler certainly goes to Hong Kong and goes in a package tour and is only for shopping, but you are not having average people here. Average people, even within the outbound travelers, average people don't have enough money to come to Mauritius. So learn to adapt your offer, tell stories, why this is a special place. And again, I think something we will have to discuss. If you tell them we have wonderful beaches, yes, but there are wonderful beaches closer to China, which maybe not as wonderful as yours, certainly, but almost as wonderful, and half the distance. Help them choosing. They are money rich, but they are time poor. So don't forget, the Chinese customers are working for their money. They are in their 30s, their 40s. They did not inherit any wealth. Until 20 years ago, there was no way to be a rich person in China. So nobody in China has money from his family. Nobody has rich parents. So these people are all working very hard. And when they're in China, they work 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. So they have enough money. It's not the point that they want to save a little bit of money. They like to bargain, certainly. But what they don't have to spend, what they don't have to lose is time. So waiting for stuff or going to a place which turns out not to be so wonderful, this is what they don't want to do. So give them more value for their money, don't give them a discount. And last point, make sure you show that you prepare for the market. Tell people in China about this, that you are committed, especially to Chinese visitors. So this is the end of the first part. On the left hand side you can see 2 ladies shopping in Seoul, and on the right hand side, this is, I found this on the internet, obviously, Mauritius doing something in China. Maybe some of you have actually been present maybe on this photo. So I think, yes, of course, we are not starting, you already have started, you already did some good steps into that direction. So I think, if you agree, if there are some immediate answers or reactions to that, please do. Otherwise, we go out to the sunshine and have a drink. What are you choosing? I see. Okay, how much? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. To speak in a number of tongues. Okay. So, as I said, the first time it was more like a university lecture, the professor speaking, the students listening. But in fact, you are not students, you are professionals. You all have important jobs, and you all have experiences and good ideas, and probably almost everybody here has been thinking about the Chinese market already. So in this second session, as I said, let's try to do this more interactive, and let's try also for you to comment and ask questions, but also tell how you have been doing things. And where at the beginning we were told, and I think that's a very good thing to say, this is something where it should not end by saying, oh, very interesting, somebody should do something about it, and then we all go home and nothing happens, but that this is really something where action and ideas about future actions should come out of it. And and of course I'm also very happy we have Permanent Secretary Madame Roy with us now, and I'm sure also we will get some support and good ideas from her. So in the first part we talked about how the customers' perspective are, how the numbers are growing, but also how the diversity of the customers is growing, and how many of the things you are reading about the Chinese outbound tourists are true for Chinese outbound tourists going to Hong Kong or to Thailand or to other Southeast Asian countries, but we are here in a place which is much further away from China, which is not the place you think the first of when you think about traveling somewhere. You have a lot of beautiful things here, but there's no Eiffel Tower here, which is the most famous icon for tourism in the world. So we talk about a special target group, and this is why we have to talk about target groups. And as we looked into, if we did it already, we talk about product adaptation. Chinese tourists, I'm sure you all know that, will not come here to stay 2 weeks just at the beach doing nothing. They want something else. So things which make me happy will not necessarily make them happy. So, and of course we have to talk about marketing strategies. How do you tell the Chinese how wonderful it is here, how nice the people here are, and even better, how do you bring the Chinese to tell each other how nice it is here? Because obviously what we are saying is always advertisement in some way. What another Chinese person is saying to another Chinese person is peer group information. So, sustaining the growth, widening the positive effects for Mauritius. I started to put some of the advertisements I found, or my colleague working for me in Beijing found for me. So what are the offers in the market? So there are quite a number. I have to say I was not aware of that. Quite a number of trips. So this is, and many of them are half organized or self-organized. So this is a group travel where you can see, again, I think, how many Western people do that? How many Western people, French, Italian, British, do Madagascar, Seychelles and Mauritius in 13 days, all in one go. Very few, I think. So you can see the idea to grab as much as possible in a short time, especially for people traveling in a package tour, is presented here. So this goes, this is a trip starting from Beijing, 13 nights, and you can see the price, 38,000 renminbi. This is about, so it's a little more than 6 to the dollar, that's about 6,000 US dollar. And that's another example. This is HH Travel, that's one of the most famous luxury tour operators. And so this is a self-organized trip where they offer the infrastructure, but there's no program. It's all, you can do what you want, and you see the price here is a little bit higher. It's 52,000 renminbi. And I don't think I have it. No, I don't have this on a chart. But one of the interesting things I saw in a lot of these advertisements, there is a term which is particles 2.5, 0. Do you know what that means? So particles which are smaller than 2.5 millimeters, so very, very small particles, are responsible for air pollution. And in China, air pollution is very, very heavy in the big cities now. So, and it is very common that on most days of the year in the big cities, in Beijing, in Tianjin, I was in Chengdu last month, it was 350 the reading, and so 300 is the level where the World Health Organization is saying, go home, close the door and the window, stop any activity, wait till it is over, it's dangerous. And in China, life goes on as normal. If it's 350, 400, so we talked earlier, so in January this year it was 800. So 300 is critical, where in Europe we would stop having any car on the street and the politicians would be in talk shows on the television 24 hours a day saying, what can we do? In China, life goes on as usual. So one of the big arguments for Mauritius is the reading for this very for air pollution is 0. No air pollution here. So this is an argument. Even for European cities, there is a nice study by the European Tourism Commission. What's the main attraction of European cities is you can go in the city without air pollution. Blue sky. So for Hamburg, so yesterday morning actually I did a China workshop in Hamburg before going to the airport. I really have a tight schedule at the moment. And this was a discussion we had that for the main reason for Chinese people to visit Hamburg is they say it's a nice city, and if you have time, welcome to come. It's a nice city, and the air is clean because it's close to the sea. This is an experience you almost never have in China now. So also here, one of the big arguments is of course that your environment is intact. But also you can see HH Travel is doing this as an argument that it is something prestigious, it is upmarket, it's luxury, it is something other people are doing that. So, as we have been seeing, 97% growth, wonderful, big boom, and you solved obviously the biggest question, the biggest problem, which is connectivity. So there are flights going non-stop from Mauritius to China, very important. And you're also connected through other airports. So Emirates is for Chinese people very important. Emirates, the prices are not very high and they're very reliable, and they always have Chinese-speaking staff on board. And this hub and spoke system in Dubai is working very well. Chinese people love Dubai Airport because there's so much nice shopping there, 24 hours a day. So you have direct air connection, very good, and you have a lot of other air connections. So I think certainly you have a good image, but of course a part of this reason to come here is novelty. It's because it's new. So this of course is sometime ending. So how do you sustain, how do we sustain the growth of this market? So I was given the most current statistics up to the end of September, so very fresh. And I looked at it also for me to understand the market, and well, you will be aware of that, I'm sure, that of course the biggest markets and in numbers still bigger than everything we have from China are obviously France and the United Kingdom, and probably Réunion in South Africa are in spending per person per trip probably less important, even though it's a huge number of people. But unfortunately, as we see, and I think this is a good reason to look into China, is that the French market is shrinking, the Italian, the Spanish don't have so much money anymore for international travel. So when we look at the Chinese numbers, we see a growth January, September, 50,000 last year, 30,000 this year, a clear doubling. And so if you look at this, the difference, so if we say 50,000 more, this is taking care of the decrease of Italians and Spanish people coming, so obviously you are able at the moment to substitute. And so as far as I understand what the problem or what the development in Mauritius is, substitution, that you have one market going down, and I don't think that Italy and Spain will come back so fast. That will be some time before that's happening. And also in the break I was told that the Russian numbers, which have been going down these years because of air connections not being so good anymore. Of course, nobody knows what will happen in Russia in the next few years. So there is a need for new tourism markets, and China is the market with, what is this? China is the market who's fulfilling this role. So United Arab Emirates is also growing by 64%, but if you look at the absolute numbers, it is just 6,000 people, which hopefully they spent a lot, but this is not for sympathy. So I tried to put this into some structure, as I'm supposed to do as a professor, and probably you all learned in your marketing classes, Porter, the 4 P's, product, place, price, promotion, remember? But this is of course looking from a production side, from the supply side, and we all have learned by now, let's look always from a customer's point of view, from the demand side. And there's another German-sounding name guy, Mr. Lauterborn, and he developed already years ago 4 C's, which is customers, needs and wants, cost, convenience, communication. And I put together just a few points, and as I said, please add to this now or later, or disagree or whatever. This is just the frame for a common discussion, what is the best way forwards. So, customers' needs and wants first. Chinese customers' needs and wants are very different from those of Western and of Arab visitors. So we have been saying that for Chinese people now, the whole world has opened, and there are so many places they have to go to, and so few places they have already been to, and there's so little time. So there is a clear wish to go to the most important, to the best places, because every day you spend here, you're not spending in 10 other places. Some of your friends told you they're also very nice. So certainly, starting very simply, the idea of going somewhere to do nothing, to just relax at the beach and not doing a lot at all, is not something Chinese people want. Chinese people want to do a lot of different things. So obviously, if somebody is coming here for a honeymoon, to stay with his or her newlywed will be very important, but even this will be something doing things together, and not just with each other, but also having something to show, to tell people at home what they have experienced, what they have seen, what was there to see. So, and I think the most important and the most difficult thing to do is is simply accept this. Accepting the fact that other people like other things than yourself. And I did for United Nations World Tourism Organizations a workshop a little bit similar to this one, or actually a longer one, a bigger one, in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka had 25 years of civil war, so the Sri Lankan tourism industry for 25 years was somehow out of the development. They were in some time loop. And we had this discussion, and the Sri Lankan government, Sri Lankan tourism industry representatives had a very hard time to understand that the Chinese are not just like the English and the French. They are traditional markets, and the Germans. It was very hard for them to accept that the Chinese are different. And they're even different from the Indians. These are the people, of course, they know in Sri Lanka. So that the Chinese are yet again different. It was the biggest part of the discussions we had was that they were saying, but there must be like this. I said, no, they're not. They're different. So I'm quite sure with your setup of your society, with so many different influences and so many different countries being involved in the development of Mauritius, you will have much less problems in understanding that. I think this is very clear, as the marketing saying goes, the worm has to be tasty to the fish, not to the angler. So if you like it or not, it's not important if your customers like it or not. And some of these things may for you be a little bit strange, like, well, things have to be done quicker and in one after the other, where you say, hey, come on, relax, sun is shining. So understand that they might have different ideas what they want to do and what they want to be told. So then the second step is, of course, to have deeper understanding, and we will talk about some aspects, but of course this is something you need more than 1 hour to talk about, and this is where we, for instance, do trainings, also online trainings, and other people do, of course, similar things. So there you need to invest simply time into understanding your customers. You have the opportunity, as you have Chinese people here, try to simply talk to them directly or via questionnaires, or do a lucky draw, say, okay, if you write down 3 good ideas how to make this place even better for Chinese customers, you can win a prize or whatever. So try to use the resource, the Chinese who are here, they are in the best position to tell you how to make your product better. So this morning I met a Chinese couple here. I asked them, from this city, we're from Shanghai, we are on honeymoon, and I asked them, well, who told you about Mauritius is a good place for honeymoon? Friends. So they got a positive recommendation by their friends, this is a good place for honeymoon. This is what you want to achieve, but to get the positive recommendation, you have to strive to make your product better and better in a Chinese way, from a Chinese point of view. And the third step is to differentiate between different customers groups, as we said, and to see what are their real and what are their symbolic needs and wants. So I spoke about this earlier. Even somebody who does not really need Chinese explanation because that person understands English has a symbolic need for showing respect to the Chinese culture. So don't just say, well, these guys speak English, so why bother? This is not enough. So, one point, for instance, we said in Money Rich, Time Poor, we mentioned that Chinese are all working many have their own companies when the people come here, so they have to be connected to their company. A lot of Chinese management is micromanaging. A lot of very small decisions are done by the boss in a Chinese company. They have to be in touch with their country. What's happening there in China? What the government is saying is very important. Things can change very rapidly. Many of them are playing the stock market or are engaged in real estate speculation. So certainly you have to make sure that they can use Wi-Fi and they can be connected to China. If you have a Chinese TV channel in your hotel TV or a Chinese newspaper, even the better. So help them to get prestige, help them to show them, yes, self-esteem, tell them, yeah, you are the elite, you are here, you choose the right place to come here. That shows that you are a experienced global traveler. So we have been doing a lot of research recently for retail, and the answer for the more experienced travelers is clearly that they say now in many retail shops, in duty-free shops in airports, there are big signs only in Chinese, special discount offer, and then the Chinese say, well, this is too much. We feel offended by that. It just looks like only the Chinese are so poor they need discounts. So if you have the sign, it should be not only in Chinese. So the Chinese coming here certainly see themselves not as stupid peasant coming out of the woods. They will not care about if the hotel room has a number 4 or not. They will think this is superstition. Yeah, for the stupid people, but hey, I studied in Harvard. What are you telling me about? What is this machine doing here? Dial-up connection. Okay. And so, especially a Chinese person outside of China will always see himself or herself, first of all, as a Chinese person, and we see whatever you do to that person, positively and negatively, you're doing to China. 1.4 billion people, 5,000 years of history, all wrote into that person. A very important topic for everybody in the tourism industry, costs. So how to do your pricing, what about telling the people? And simply, the fact is Mauritius is far away from China. And this fact will not change. It's a long way from most places, from most of your markets, but it's also a long way from China. So, therefore, you cannot be a big mass market, a cheap end market for China ever, because simply the distance is too big. Second, Mauritius is not such a big place. You have a limited carrying capacity. So, if you have, this is ignorant. If you have, well, you have 1 million visitors a year now, 1 million arrivals. So what's your carrying capacity? 3 million? 4 million? 2.5 million? Tell me. What is the maximum number of arrivals for Mauritius before the product is damaged? Before the experience is not good anymore? Huh? Less than 1 million. Means already too much. It's already too much. Wow. So, yes. 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 Okay, yeah, good argument. And well, there are some parts in the part of Germany where I'm living, there the ratio between inhabitants and visitors is much higher. It's 3 million to 50 million. So here it's 1 to 1 more or less. So, but still, this is a question you have to ask yourself. How big is limit? And of course the third point is, and this is something you can see mistakes done by other destinations, you don't have to do again. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So don't say we go 100% for the Chinese and then we only have Chinese people. I talked recently to a guy who owns a number of hotels on the Maldives, and he said that he learned he will never put more than 50% Chinese people into his hotel. Because the Chinese don't like it, if they're 90 or 100% Chinese, they say, well, I could have stayed home. I'm only among Chinese, not there. And also he said if they're 80% Chinese, the 20% Western tourists will feel pushed to the side and they won't like it anymore. So certainly, and looking at the numbers we just saw, well, this is 40,000 out of 1 million. Maybe in the future we can have 100,000 out of 1 million. Still, it's only 10% or 200,000, it's still 20%. It's not the majority. So you have to look how can you have Chinese tourists here which are not crowding out your other or annoying your other customers. So that means for costs, you can only sustain your growth based on high prices and high quality of your customers. So give them more for the same price, give them an extra special experience, a wonderful time of their life. I'm sure you have the resources to do that, and you have the experience to do that. So this is more important than giving them discounts. Chinese invented haggling 10,000 years ago, and Chinese are the best. I've been doing this for 14 years. Haggling with Chinese, I always lose. So they are very good at this, and it's a sport. It is not about money. You have to try to get the best price. But in the end, our customers here are not poor, and they can afford to pay $500 or $1,000 more if something is really good, because they, as I said, they don't have time. So if they get something very good in the time they're here, so give them more quality and more service, but not necessarily less price, even if they ask for it. So add always something new. I think you have a lot of attractions here, diving and helicopters and no, not helicopters, parachuting. You have helicopters as well. Very good, even better. So try to get into new partnerships. As we saw, maybe it's not your first idea to say, hey, we have to partner with Seychelles and Madagascar because you see them maybe as your competitors. The Chinese don't. They see this as one area of the world. So most important, keep the international VIP atmosphere. And this is where the people who are very important are going. Internationally, this is where the famous international people go, and the famous VIP Chinese people go. And you can do this via pricing. So be expensive. Don't be cheap. Be expensive. Because if you are cheap and you can attract 5 million Chinese visitors, what are you doing with 5 million Chinese visitors? The island will sink. So therefore, this is not an option. Mass market is not an option. So the other option is stay exclusive. So be rather Tahiti or Fiji and be not Maldives. Because what you see now, when you look into the Chinese social media discussions, the Maldives already have become common. So if you are in a certain strata of the Chinese society, already the Maldives are too common. So if you want to marry a really beautiful girl, offering a honeymoon in the Maldives, maybe it's not enough anymore. So this is, I think, something I'm very interested to hear what you think about this. Obviously, I'm not very deeply knowledgeable about Mauritius, but from what I've seen in other markets, this is clearly what you can see. So I think in Africa, the worst example, the worst case example is Egypt. Not now, but before the troubles. So Egypt was among the first 6 countries in Africa where Chinese could go with a tourist visa from 2003. And the Chinese tour operators pushed down the prices very strongly in Egypt, so there were very low prices. As a result, they got very bad quality. And I talked to a number of Egyptian inbound tour operators, and they told me about the Chinese were pushing the prices so far down, I could not give them an air-conditioned bus. I have to give them a bus without air conditioning. Otherwise, I can't make any money. But being in Egypt in summer in a bus without air conditioning is not a good experience. And they had almost no Chinese-speaking tour guides. They would do tour guiding in English, where 10 years ago, much less Chinese tourists could speak English. There were almost no Chinese restaurants, where 10 years ago the Chinese were less used than they are today to eat international food. So Egypt became very quickly a place where people were traveling who couldn't afford anything better. And if tourism is about bragging, that's the worst thing which can happen. So if they say, this is, okay, well, this is, if I can't do anything better, you go there. So this is a trap. So certainly the Chinese tour operators we are working with, they will try very hard to push down the prices, and they're very good at that. But as I said, your customers are more likely to book directly with you. So if you have a good presence with online travel agencies in China, a good Chinese website, done the Chinese way, hosted in China, supported by social media activities so people know about it and find it, it is more likely that the customers are booking directly with you, and then, well, you don't have to pay permission to the tour operator, and then this is not a question, but still that you can, of course it will be a good idea to give them some extra. Tell them, okay, if you pay for 6 nights and you can stay for 7 nights, or you can come and you get 1 day spa treatment for free in this period of time. All this kind of things, all this adding something. The Chinese people are very happy. They will show, hey, look, I'm a clever guy. I got this special offer. So very good. Do that always, but not saying 20% discount, but saying you get on top of this, you can get, or when you come back the second time, or you recommend your friend to come here, your friend gets 5% discount. There is a telephone ringing somewhere. Okay. So this is important, and as soon as at least a part of the customers are end users you deal with directly, then you have a totally different game from dealing with China outbound tour operators, where Mauritius is one product among many, and from the number of travelers, certainly not the biggest one. So you will not be their main market. I don't think there will be a Chinese tour operator specializing in Mauritius. For that, I think the market is too small. So that is what I think, talking about prices, rather try to be exclusive, and also of course that will mean that the people coming here probably will not meet this Chinese tourism law reminding them that they shouldn't spit on the ground and shouldn't behave badly. They will be more sophisticated people. You don't have to tell them. So maybe we go through that, and then we open the floor and we talk about this. So transport, accessibility is of course number one, and you already solved this problem more or less. But also interregional connections are important. So I've been working some years ago for Jamaica, and after Mr. Bowles won the 100-meter race in the Beijing Olympics in the wonderful time, and he gave face to the Chinese because he gave some highlight to the Beijing Olympics. They were very happy, and they learned about Jamaica, and he's a beautiful man, so a lot of ladies especially were interested to go to Jamaica, where there are supposed to be more beautiful men. So, but in the end, I've been working with the ministry, and we did a workshop some years ago also in Montego Bay. The problem was that very few Chinese tourists actually came. Some investors came, so they now have a highway built by the Chinese and a new conference center, and the Chinese bought the sugar production in Jamaica. It's now almost all the sugar production companies are owned by Chinese people now, because they went there and had a look and thought that's a good business. But very few tourists came. Why? Because Jamaica is a small island, and from a Chinese point of view, to fly all the way there only to go to Jamaica is not enough. And if you look at the Caribbean islands, the connections between the Caribbeans are very bad. So if you want to fly from one island to the other, very often you have to go back to Miami, which means another US visa. So forget it. Otherwise you can't go from one island to the other. Or, right, okay, if you have a yacht, yes, but if you don't have a big boat, then there's no way. So, as we said, many Chinese people will say, well, I also want to go to Madagascar and Seychelles and Tanzania, what have you. So, it is in your interest to support interregional connections. It is not something where you help your competitors to get your customers. No, it will help everybody to get more customers altogether. Another point about transport, don't forget ships. Cruise shipping is the next big thing happening in China. It's just starting now in China. This year, 5 new cruise centers in different harbors were opened in China. So cruises in China are big, but of course also Chinese people going to other places. I looked at the numbers. As far as I see, cruise shipping is not very important here. Or at least from you tell me. From the numbers I saw, it didn't seem to be the big thing here, like it is, for instance, in Jamaica. So if this is something you can be part of and say, yeah, let's see how we can attract cruise ship companies, and I know of at least 2 cruise ship companies who are starting now new ships built mostly with the Chinese customers in mind and are looking for good routes to travel. And I think, southeastern part of Africa would be an obvious idea. So if this is something for you can enter. I think this is looking into the future. How can you have Chinese people who are not weighing on your carrying capacity? Is of course one thing is to say, okay, we are involved in as a destination for Chinese centered cruises. And of course this is again luxury tourism. This is where a lot of these cruises are sold by the high price, so where the higher prices get more attention and more customer than the low prices. For instance, going to the North Pole and the South Pole is now a big thing in China, and very expensive. Convenience, that's the 4th C. On Mauritius, make it easy for Chinese customers to find their way around. A lot of Chinese people now, well, most of your customers have a driving license, and it becomes more and more common to rent your own car and drive around. And I think, well, here, of course, it will be difficult for the Chinese to get used to the fact that, from their point of view, you're driving on the wrong side of the road. But then there are not so many cars. But this is, I think, self-drive is an important topic. And self-drive is, from a Chinese point of view, freedom. So you can make your own choices. You can decide to go left or right. In China, not much of such decisions. In the political realm, yours. So this is something very many Chinese people say, this is, I can do this, I can do something for myself, nobody's telling me where to go. And in other ways, finding their way around by telling them what is interesting from their point of view. So offer Chinese services, but as I said, as addition to international services. You will read very often Chinese tourists insist on Chinese food and Chinese tourists insist on Chinese breakfast only. Many, yes. Your customers, no. They will want that you have also Chinese food here, and obviously you have, no problem for you in Mauritius, and they have Chinese breakfast, but not only, but as an addition to what is there anyway. What do you have? Local breakfast, and saying that this morning I had the experience of breakfast here. It was very nice European breakfast, but I would have preferred the African breakfast, or a Mauritian breakfast actually, not the European one. And I think many Chinese are also looking for authentic, regional experiences. They will say, if I want to eat croissants, I go to Paris. So remember what we said before, return on investment. That is what the Chinese are looking for. So help your Chinese customers that they have something to brag about. And you have a lot to brag about. I mean, one of the big things in Mauritius is you're not just a beach. Like the Maldives, there's not much more than a beach. You have a lot of history, you have a lot of, so I have to admit that until 1 month ago I was more or less totally unaware of the history of Mauritius, but preparing for this I've done my reading, and I found, wow, very interesting. A lot of interesting things happened here. And a lot of these things Chinese people can connect to. Taiwan was first taken over by the Dutch, and then the Dutch left again, and then somebody else came. So there are a lot of parallels you can draw between the history of Mauritius and the history of other parts of closer to China, especially Taiwan. So there's a lot where you can tell stories which are interesting. And of course, the story of the Chinese people here. You do have Chinese people here, and that they are integrated into society, that the Chinese are not discriminated here. This is something very important. And so just the diversity of the things you are offering. I think, again, this is a very important argument for sales to say, in this small island you can have so many different cultures, you can see so many different temples from different religions all in one place, and sunshine and beach to boot. So this is much better than many other places you're competing with can offer as a beach destination. So, actually that's of course, the last C is communication. So, Chinese people, even more than other younger people, even more than my students in my university in Germany, are living in the social media sphere. So, whatever they do, they blog about. So there are more than 600 million internet users, and there's Sina Weibo, which is as big as Facebook, the Chinese version. So you do not have Facebook, you do not have Twitter, you do not have YouTube. All this is blocked in China. Well, you can find ways around, but there are similar things as big but better, because the Chinese looked at Facebook and then made something better. They looked at Twitter and then made something better. And this is very, very important. So there's probably have seen that your customers in a restaurant, you put the food in front of them. First, what they do, they take a photo with their smartphone and send it on their Sina Weibo blog account. So their friends in China can in real time see what they are eating here, or the sunset, or whatever. So that's very, very important. Bragging. But also keeping inside the group. So you're here, your friends are there, keep contact with them, keep close to them by sharing your experience. And now with modern media, it is of course much easier than before. So offer free Wi-Fi. Whatever you do, if you're a museum or a taxi or a golf course, free Wi-Fi is necessary. Use social media instruments. And one thing from a company we are working with very closely, Dragon Trail in Beijing, that's the best, I would think, the best social media company for tourism. They have something called Trip Show, which is a way where you take the photos uploaded by the Chinese customers and offer them to put them on a special place where they all come together. And this is a community, and people can, through the photos, and also talk to each other, so people can compare their experience from 6 months ago to the experience now. And this is, they have a lot of big customers, and that's very successful because photos is the most important activities, uploading photos, what Chinese people do when they're traveling. And this is, it's not expensive, but very efficient to create communities and to have people coming back again. I mentioned before quality labels, so help people to know beforehand that you are prepared for Chinese customers. So we do something called Chinese tourists welcoming quality label. There are other labels. Have, very important, brand ambassadors. Have somebody, if this is a famous golf player or a famous film star, and yeah, I was told there are Chinese movies now produced here, very good. Have some celebrity coming here. And I think it's not hard to convince people to come here. So I'm working a lot with Ireland, and to bring somebody to Ireland, especially outside summertime, is much harder, which means more expensive. So have brand ambassadors who are giving this place a face, who are doing testimonials and saying, yes, I've been here, it has been wonderful. That has to be people who are known in China. It can be Western people or Chinese people, but of course they have to be known in China. And most important point, Chinese are very realistic that everything which is published by us is advertisement. So what else will you say about your island other than it's wonderful? Of course you say you want to sell. So the only information Chinese people are trust is what their peers, their friends, their real friends, their virtual friends are telling them. So UGC, user-generated content. So social media, what other people are telling. And of course, your Chinese customers will tell the things which are important for Chinese. So maybe you don't mention clean air as the first thing when you describe your product, because you take it for granted. You don't mention that everybody here speaks English and French, because you take it for granted. But this is very, very important, maybe more important than for other people. And less expected. So if you have the Chinese telling the other Chinese what is important here, they will tell the things which are important from a Chinese point of view. So the last thing, of course, the product, what we all have learned to start with thinking, I put it last. You know your product very well, better than me, but on top of what you think is, as I said, no pollution, very important. There is a successful local Chinese population, which has been here for a long time, which is part of the society. This is something, of course, very interesting for Chinese people, how do other people, Chinese people all over the world do. You have friendly political relations. You are a friend of China. Your governments have good relations. I read that the Confucius Institute, which is like the British Council or the Goethe Institute or the Maison de la France, is supposed to be paid by the Chinese, established here very soon, which is always a sign of good political relations. And one of the arguments is, of course, you don't have too many Chinese tourists here. It is exclusive to come here. It is something you can be quite sure that if you, at the next party, nobody else has been here. So this is one argument for coming here. And I can give an example. A friend of mine, actually one of our country partners was Scotland, he had a group of Chinese tourists coming to Scotland, obviously people with some money, and they rented for 4 or 5 days a whole castle. I think there were 5 people, with a helicopter on standby if they want to go shopping in Edinburgh for the whole time. And for the dinner, people had to dress up like 18th century servants, and they were playing King and Queen of Scotland for some days and enjoyed themselves very much and paid a lot of money for that. And the contract had a clause which was saying that they wanted to be guaranteed that for at least 12 months this castle is not rented to any other Chinese customer. That was the precondition that they are coming. That for 1 year they are sure no other Chinese can tell this story and show these photos what they did in the castle. So this can be an argument. So of course you can't guarantee nobody else coming to Mauritius, or to your hotel, but exclusivity is important, and this is something more interesting than maybe it is for your French customers to come where it is probably rather more simply a question of money and personal taste if you come here or not. For Chinese it's very much more than that. So again, your product is try to look through it from Chinese eyes. So we do a lot of focus groups and online questionnaires in China, and I'm always surprised when we have a focus group for a destination which I think I know very well, and I think I have some idea how probably the Chinese people will look at it. There are always some aspects which I never thought about which are coming up in the focus group from Chinese people. So this is useful to do that, and it is necessary to see from a Chinese point of view. So this, to prepare for this, so of course I did some mini research by asking my Chinese staff in China and some other Chinese friends, what do you know about Mauritius and what do you think, what you can do there. And so some of this has been entered here, but obviously this was not a real market research, so there's much more to gain. And there are how many Chinese people have been here already? 50,000 in the last 3-4 years? Maybe like something like that. So if 50,000 Chinese have been here, 30,000 or 40,000 of them will have been writing something online about their experiences. Not only telling people, but actually putting somewhere. And this is there, you can read it. So this is the best source of information you have, because this is not some marketing guys or some government or some crazy professor telling you this is the market speaking itself. And this is what is shaping the image, and this you have to know to react. Maybe they have some misconceptions you can react to, or maybe, as I said, you find that they are praising you for something you're not even aware of. So this is now the wonderful opportunity which is there to do data mining, to see what the people are talking to each other about their travel experiences, and Chinese people like very much to exchange information about that. So, summing up, future is so bright, we have to wear shades, like the little panda bear. Until a few years ago, China outbound tourism was about one thing, and that was price. It was dominated by tour operators, and the tour operators knew one thing, and this was make it cheaper, make it cheaper. And huge number of people. With the effect that you had a race to the bottom, and many package tours are very bad quality, and actually now the new tourism law is trying to fight against this. And also on the upper end of the market, out of lack of experience with the tour operators, they thought luxury means expensive or famous brand and not special. Self-organized travelers, people with more travel experience, have new and better criteria. They can judge quality because they have more experience. They know better what they actually want. And so if you can show that you understand the customers, that you can involve the community. One of the things you always hear from the Chinese experienced customers is they want to be close to the community. They want to have real interaction with the people, which of course is easier when the local people speak English. Your customer, most of them are very interested in environmental questions, and if you live in a big Chinese city, you know why. So whatever you do here in terms of environmental friendly, green policies, and my first impression was when I saw that you do something in this respect, of course, tell people about it. They will be happy and interested to see what you are doing. So you can sell the beach, but you can sell a lot more, and this will be your major argument why you should go all the way to here and not stop already in Thailand or in Sri Lanka or the Maldives, because it's more than just beach. So China outbound market, you ain't seen nothing yet. It is just starting. So this is now at the end. I've been talking again, but maybe we can turn on the light a bit. And so, as I said, this is what I thought about, what I analyzed, the conclusions I came to based on what I know about the Chinese outbound market, but of course based on very, very shallow knowledge about Mauritius, and this is a part you are much better than I am. So please, questions, but also your own ideas, or we say, well, we do all this already. You tell us, old heads, this is all we know, all this already. I'm very eager to hear that. And yes, please.
Not bad image, but when you speak Africa to Chinese people, they say, oh, Africa is a bit dangerous and big dangerous. And if we say Mauritius is part of Africa, what will be the reaction of the Chinese people?
Good point. Yeah, very, very important point. So I think, of course, I've been talking to our Kenyan country partner a lot about this for Kenya, which is undoubtedly part of Africa and can't sell it anything other. And this is exactly a point where you have to be careful, because Africa is, in the Chinese point of view, connected to health problems, to HIV, or some other dangerous insects flying around and biting you, and you get some illness from that. And also, probably more important, of not keeping schedules, of having bad infrastructure, which is, you have to wait for 1 or 2 days because it has been raining, the street is blocked, you can't go, you have to wait for 2 days before the road can be used again, which is waste of time, which is very bad. So this is indeed, I don't think that we should say Mauritius, welcome to Africa, but rather, but I mean, you have the argument that, as far as I understand, after Seychelles, you're the second biggest GDP per person in Africa, and on a number of other scales you are coming up top or in the top league. So you have a lot of argument to say we are the good part of Africa, but of course you are Indian Ocean, so you can of course go piggyback on the Maldives, say we are the Maldives but better. So this is, yeah, so that's a very important point. So be careful. And anyway, so the image, the Chinese image of Africa is of course of black people, so, and of black African culture, which is a part, as far as I understand, of the Mauritian culture, but not the biggest part. And most Chinese have very little idea, very unclear, hazy idea about slavery, how this worked. So this is something they will not understand. What's the difference between slaves coming here and African people coming here by themselves, and so that is complicated. No, but that's a good point. So I think, anyway, on a map in China, probably you will see this is a dot in the ocean, and that next to it is Africa. It's probably not anywhere in the Maldives. Certainly, Chinese people go to Maldives, they don't think at all that this is Africa, or Seychelles, they don't think Africa. But yeah, good point. Please.
We have several questions. First one, how can we resist to the price-driven policy of Chinese deal? What should we do to make Mauritius trendy? Because we want to attract the young Chinese guy to Mauritius. And do you think the image of a sporty Mauritius can appeal to them? And then what do you...
Sorry, the image of what?
The sporty Mauritius, sports and tourism,
yes,
can appeal to them. And what do you think about, our plan to tap the golfers, Chinese golfers?
Well, okay. I hope I can remember all these questions. So, well, maybe starting with the last one. Golf is important. I'm working a lot with Scotland, with Ireland, and so Chinese people are learning to be tourists. They are learning to be rich. They're all nouveau riche. They all became rich only in the last 10 years, and they all learned that rich people play golf. On the other hand, they are, unlike many other, let's say, American rich people, they have not been rich for many years, and there are no rich pensioners in China yet. So most people in China don't have time to play a lot of golf. So you become a member of a golf club in Shanghai and you pay maybe $50,000 annual membership fee or $100,000 annual membership fee, not because of the sports, but because everybody else in the clubhouse was also able to pay that, so they're interesting people to talk to, which is also sometimes the same with us, of course, here. But so most of the Chinese golfers are very bad golfers, and they rather come for the photo or to have a famous golf pro here, which you have 30 minutes training session and then take a picture, something like that. So yes, golf is important, but do not expect them to come here and then stay on the green for days and really play golf all the time. So, but if this is something, of course, saying that there are, of course, people who are really into it and spend all their free time on this. So we will also have some people, but the majority will rather say, this is a part of the attraction, one additional reason to come here. So it's very good, you can offer that. And how many golf courses you have? 8, 7. So you can. That's again very important. You can say, okay, you can have a tour, and there is a marketing association already there. So you can say, we are the best golf courses, and you can have a play each day a different one. That's very good. And of course, you have the advantage that you can play golf here in the northern summer. In the northern winter. So where you can't play in Scotland or Ireland. So it is important, but don't think they come like maybe some Americans and do nothing but golf all the time. So trendy, certainly, this is exactly what you have to do. So the people we have been talking about are people who are maximum, let's say, 42 years, rather between 25 and 35. So a lot of rich people in China are young people. So it's a very common story. You are a bright young guy, you go abroad, you study in America, you bring home some nice idea for internet or now for apps or whatever, copy it but make it better, Chinese way, very easy to find some investment venture capital in China, and voila, after 2 years you have $5 million in your bank account and you're only 29. So this is a lot of stories in China. So these people are very much tech savvy, and internet is mostly mobile, so it's now more people are using smartphones and tablets for going online than PCs. So when we talk about this trendy thing, this is mostly smartphone applications, mobile internet, and this is exactly what you have to do, to say, yeah, this is for the people who are the avant-garde, who are at the forefront and who are smart. So this is the image certainly you have to have prevailing. And now I forgot the first question. Yes, so yeah, I mean, So this is certainly, I mean, I know this is difficult because you are not one company, you are many different companies, and you fight for the price each by yourself. And the minister cannot say that's the price level, we can't go below. I know that. But so I think you have for yourself, before you start dealing with Chinese in a big way, think for yourself, okay, what do I want? So do I want, as I said, Chinese people as a substitution for the French who are coming in smaller numbers? So that does it mean my price, what I earn from them, should not be lower from what I earned before from the French? Then, for instance, you have a clear bottom where you say, okay, this is my bottom, I will not go below this, whatever they tell me. Because Chinese, in the 1990s, I did this business myself, and of course Chinese are very good. They said, well, this is the first group I'm sending you have to give me a discount because it's the first time, and from the second or the third group, I'm your old friend, you have to give me a discount because now we are now old friends. Or this is a special group and these are very important people. They will tell afterwards many other people how wonderful your place is. So this is a marketing fee you have to pay, low price. There's always an argument for that, and they're very innovative and persistent in that. So, but I think the only solution I see is that as an industry, what we are doing now here as an industry, you should come to an agreement to say, what is our strategy? Is our strategy arrival numbers, or is our strategy margin? These are two different things. And if you say our strategy is margin, we want to earn good money with our customers, then everything else follows. So this is something you have to say. Maybe you say, as I said, what do I know about Mauritius? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe mass market is a better strategy. I would be surprised, but whatever, it's your decision, not mine. But think about this and make this decision and put this on a white paper, put this down somewhere and say, this is what we have said, this is what we want to do. We want to have high quality, high end of the market, and we question, set a limit? Do we say we don't want to have more than
15% of our arrivals from China, from 20 or whatever. So we want to keep the mix right. And so if it's 1 million, then 200,000 Chinese, and if it's 1.5 million, then 300,000 Chinese arrivals. That's what we aim at. So we do not aim at 1 million Chinese arrivals. These are the things, I think, this is your job to do, and I see you do many things better than many other people. I can tell you this, I can congratulate you on this. I've seen a lot of destinations who do a lot of stupid mistakes. You obviously you do not do. So you are in a good position, and you're not France. You're not a place where you have 50,000 stakeholders. You know each other much better, and you can probably bring all the important people in tourism into one room. So we will have a room on this island which is big enough for that. So it is easier in some ways for you to do that. And I think, but this is something when you discuss with Chinese people, you have to know your position. And as I said, I've been working with Siemens on how to build metros, totally different thing, transport, not tourism, but it was the same thing. But if you didn't know what is your bottom line, the Chinese would push you down, 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 down over years. So the boss of Siemens at that time, Mr. von Pier, told me that that the Germans built a magnetic train, a maglev train, which is now running from the Pudong airport to Shanghai City. And this was a prestige project from Zhu Rongji, the leader of China at that time. So the evening before the opening, when our Chancellor Kohl at the time and Zhu Rongji already were meeting and having dinner, the boss of the project was having dinner with Mr. von Pier, the Siemens boss. And at that evening, before the official opening, the Chinese guy said, you know what, we have been doing the calculations again, we have to go down 10 million with the price. And Mr. von Pier said, he stood up and he showed his pocket and said, he said, no, empty, nothing left. And then his Chinese counterpart said, it's always worth a try, have a drink. And that was it. So at that time, Mr. von Pier knew enough about China, not because it was what the Chancellor is waiting next door, so you cannot not have it not happening. So if he would have been less experienced, he would have said 10 million, no, but now maybe 2. To China, okay, 2 million, well, let's have 4 or 3, okay, 3. So they would have had 3 million in their pocket. So he knew enough to that the other guy also couldn't do anything because his boss was also there. So it was just a bluff. So, but this is something on this level, on the level of the national leaders, a prestige project, still this game is played. And if it's not, so the friendship between the Chinese guy and Mr. von Pier grew. So now we know, the Chinese knew Mr. von Pier is a clever guy. It's good to have him as a business partner, so that he felt more respect. And the money was, well, if you can get the money, nice. If not, try. So this is things where you have to be aware of, and where you simply say, okay, what is my bottom line? And if the guy says, if I say it has to be 650 and he says 620 or no deal, then you say, okay, no deal. And as I said, anyway, if you have individual customers booking themselves, you don't have to, you have an alternative. So you're not at the mercy of a few big Chinese tour operators, like you have been some years ago. Other questions? Yes. Okay. Yes, of course. So there are also, I mean, there are also, of course, exclusive private jet trips. So one famous example is that for the Olympic Games in London, CAISA, big tour operator, they offered a trip, private jet, 12 people going to London, all the tickets for all the important events, and dinner with a minor member of the British royal family, $1 million. And they put this online, and only one airplane, only one group of 12 people. They put this online at midnight, and it was sold 20 seconds later. And afterwards, I know the boss of Caisa in Europe, and he said afterwards, he said, well, we should have offered 5, not 1, so we would have 5 million, not 1 million. But it was, the argument was exactly this: prestige, nobody else can have this. So some rich guy bought this and invited his friends. So there is a market for this kind of thing, that you say, okay, you can have a private jet trip going to different islands, or do island hopping with a private jet. That is certainly a very good thing. And if it's not too difficult to get visa for the different places, and now of course I know for Mauritius, for Seychelles, it's very, very easy now, and for other places as well. This is a reason why you cannot do this in the Caribbean, for instance. This would be a very good idea. This would be something certainly successful, to do this on this level of private jet and best available hotel room on the island. This is something which we certainly work. So what do you think? Is this realistic to say there can be an agreement among the tourism industry of this island to say, yeah, this is the way we want to go to the Chinese market, or am I too naive and thinking such a wonderful place, everybody must be friendly with everybody? maybe I'm wrong. Please. Okay.
So we must be, I don't know, we can learn out of it, and I don't know, maybe Carl should put something together for the Chinese market.
Yes. Yeah, and this is what I'm always telling my students: making a mistake one time is called learning. Making a mistake 2 times is learn something. Is told something else. That's being stupid. So, so if you make this mistake already once, yeah. So maybe that's a good base on not making it again. Not making it again. And so, please. You were just stretching your arm. Okay, good. Okay, we can all do this. Patsy, please.
It might be an interesting question for an advertising campaign.
Yes.
Psychologically, the Chinese would love to see a European face or Chinese face.
Good question. This has been the source of a lot of discussions. So, and it has been changing. The question was, do you put Chinese faces or do you put Western faces on your brochures? And I was actually thinking about this afternoon. In my room I saw that for the spa you have here, they have there's a brochure which is in English and French, and there is a laminated A4 piece in very good Chinese characters, so very well done, not scribbled by somebody, looks good, looks professional, with the main information in Chinese. So because obviously it's a new market, the other brochures have been produced before. So, good. And there is a beautiful Western lady lying face down and getting something rubbed into her back. So, and I was thinking exactly this question. So, would it be better to have a Chinese lady there on the face or a Western lady? And I think probably for your kind of customers, the Western lady is better, because it shows that this is an international place. If you have 2 photos on it, I would think have 1 Western and 1 Chinese. But if it's only 1 photo, I think it is rather to emphasize that this is international. So again, this is changing. My answer would have been 3-4 years ago, has to be a Chinese person, because you have to document that Chinese people like this here, and so this was at the time about websites, a lot of discussions that people were saying we want to have a website where the photos are all the same and we only have a content management system where we can change the text from one language to the other, but it's much harder to change the photos. And there was always this discussion that if all the photos show Western people, then the Chinese texts say Chinese people like it to come here, but on all the photos you don't see any Chinese. It's not convincing. But with your customers, high-end customers, rather come here because this is a place where internationally the clever, rich, intelligent, knowledgeable, experienced people go. I think it is better to have Western face, and if you have a number of faces, a mixture. So if you have a hotel brochure with 15 photos, certainly 6 or 7 out of 15 should have Chinese people. Or even Chinese person speaking to a Western person, and not the waiter, as a guest. So there's interaction among Chinese and international guests. So that will be, for your clientele, good. For the mass market, it's clearly Chinese faces. But for your clientele, mixture. But this is, these are the things you can see. The Chinese market is developing so fast, and there's so much literature now talking about the package tourists and telling how to treat them, which was right some years ago, but is no longer right today. But again, if I may say so, that shows that you already understood the problem. You see that this is a question you have to think about, which already, I can tell you, you are more advanced than the majority of your competitors who don't even know that this is something you have to think about. So this is, I think, of course it's because you're all smart people, but it's also because it's easier for you to be smart because you're living in a society where diversity is your everyday experience. Ask the Japanese, where there's nobody in Japan who is not a Japanese, how hard it is for them to imagine anybody not being like them. So now they rather have robots taking care of their old people than have foreigners coming to take care of their old people. So this is, I think, one of your big advantages, something to sell to your customers, diversity in a small place, so many different faces. So if I look at your faces, the whole world is here. But also for yourself, for your way of seeing the world, for your own way of thinking. Obviously it is easier for you to understand there is diversity than it is, including, I have to say, Germany, where I can give you one example. Recently I did a speech at the annual tourism meeting for one part of Germany, where I was saying, you have to adapt your product, you have to adapt your thinking, and the answer from the local tourism people was, if somebody comes to Germany, he should adapt to us. If he wants to know about Germany, then he should try to behave like a German. And I said, well, good luck for your bottom line. So, tell me when your furniture is for sale after your hotel went bankrupt. So there are many people who have these ideas, and I think, you are in a good position. But of course you have to use it. You have advantage, but the advantages are not developing into good development by themselves.
We have a lot of French people here, and we have South African people, and we tell them not how to cohabitate, but how we welcome different culture, because there is a big difference between the Eastern, Western, and Asiatic culture, and this is one point that we are working hard here in Connaitre. Because, as you know, the French people, they don't like too much to share, and if they are mixed with too many other cultures, if they are not informed before, they don't spend happy vacation. So the point of cohabitation for me is essential.
Yes, I agree. And this is, of course, I would say, from a German perspective, for a long time, Club Med in Germany would say, well, this is something for French people. If I don't speak French, I don't go there, because this is where the French are, and I'm German. So that was obviously a image problem Club Med had outside of the French-speaking world, that everyone were thinking this is, if you don't speak French, you're not welcome there. Which, of course, was never true, I know, but that was the image. So it has changed now, I think. But so this is certainly an important topic, and it's important for your other customers. It's also important for the Chinese. And you already gave part of the answer, which is information. It is making people aware of that and having the right mixture. So you have examples, for instance, in Italy, you have both examples where Chinese groups were put for breakfast, for instance, or for dinner in the restaurant in a separate room. And I saw some places where actually there was a sign, handwritten sign in Chinese breakfast room downstairs, and this was in a windowless room in the basement, because the other customers obviously were annoyed that the Chinese were making too much noise and were too awake in the morning, where most of the Western tourists were still half sleeping and wanted to be everything quiet. And the Chinese were totally offended by that. So the solution you cannot have is ghettos. You cannot say, okay, this hotel is only for Chinese, and this hotel is only for Russians, and this hotel is only for French. At least from a Chinese point of view, this will not work. The Chinese, especially the Chinese coming here, they will say, well, I want to be part of the international community, I want to be part of a mixed group, this is the attraction to come here, so I don't want to be only with other Chinese people. And so you have to have the right mixture. This is what I was saying. I don't think it's a good idea to say, okay, we have 80% Chinese guests here, then the other 20%, if they are French or whatever, if they are South Africans or North Americans, will not be happy about that, because then the Chinese will take over the whole place from the atmosphere. So, and there are problems, of course. So there is. So we had this year we have been working in as I said, in Ireland, and we had a training in Dromoland Castle, which is very close to Shannon Airport, old nice castle, and the majority of their customers are American pensioners. It's golf. They have 2 golf courses, and the majority are 70 plus North Americans. And the owner or the general manager of the hotel said that they had one time they had a Chinese delegation there, and for breakfast the Chinese were talking. These were ministry people, educated people. For breakfast they were talking what they thought as a normal level of noise, but in China it was totally normal. But for this 70-plus-year-old Americans, this was already disturbing, and the American pensioners were used to go to bed at 9 p.m. and the Chinese were not. And she said for her, the result was clear: no Chinese in my hotel, because my American customers will run away. Well, no, they don't run. They will slowly walk away. So this is something you have to be aware of, and that it might be for some places. For smaller places, that can also be a conclusion. Again, this is why you have to think before, what do we want to have Chinese customers for, and what might be the question there. It might be for some places to say, the result is, okay, no, I do not want to have Chinese customers. That is also, if you know that before, you're saving a lot of efforts and problems and trouble. But the basic answer is, be aware of the problems, tell everybody, and in a very friendly way lay down rules and say this is what we are normally doing here. So which you are doing in many ways. Well, I'm sure you have a sign, don't jump into the swimming pool, And you have, I saw the Zen area and the active area, good idea. And so this, you are doing this anyway. And I think this is also for the different customer groups by nation. Again, what you have to do, that you will say, okay, these are the rules of the place here. And as I said, Chinese tourists are still learning to be a rich tourist. So they will be not annoyed if this is not done in a way where it is only for the Chinese. So where they see this is for everybody. You say, okay, we have here an atmosphere of mutual friendship and understanding, and nobody should do this and this. Then it will be acceptable. If this is only in Chinese, and you have only a Chinese sign saying, don't spit on the floor, and it's only in Chinese, then they will be very annoyed to say, what are they thinking of us? And or, classical example, you have a no smoking sign, a crossed out cigarette, and underneath no smoking in Chinese, and only in Chinese. The Chinese have several times read these comments where they say, this is so offending to us because A, it seems you think we are too stupid to understand the sign, and B, you are singling us out, and this is of course showing that you think we are the only people going against that regulation. So this is, so if you, yes, you should have rules, but they should be for everybody, and they should be in different languages, so that the Chinese don't think this is only done against them, that you single them out as a problem to troublemakers. But there are problems, and we have, and this is not only among guests, it's also for your staff. So I know that in Europe, a lot of people working in hotels, for instance, hate Chinese tourists because they say Chinese tourists are not friendly. They are not smiling back. So the hotel receptionist giving the hotel key to the Chinese guest, the Chinese guest will take it without saying thank you, without smiling, because in China you don't do that. In China you have a realistic idea, this girl is paid for that, and as long as she's not doing anything special but just giving you the key, what is her job, I have no obligation as a guest, as a paying guest, to be friendly to her. She's a servant. In Europe, and probably also here, we're used to say, okay, you have to be nice also to the waitress, because she's also a human being, and so you have to smile back. This is not usual thing you do in China, if it's not something extra. And so this is something where you still need simply to train people and say, okay, don't take this personal. This is a Chinese culture way. Saying that, of course, a lot of Chinese people who have been living abroad for some time, they learn of this and they change. But many Chinese people say, well, I pay, so why should I? You have to be friendly to me, but I don't have to be friendly to you if I don't want. This is not only among different customer groups, it's also among your staff members. And these problems normally become much smaller if you are aware of them and if you address them. The biggest problems always are in these cases where you don't see them, or you ignore them, or you're denying that these problems are existing. Then it becomes really difficult.
We are going to have 3 movie shooting in Mauritius. Most probably we'll gather a lot of visibility. So our point is, how can we fine-tune what we are going to offer to the Chinese tourists, to buy as souvenir. We do our ship model. We want to make a breakthrough with our rum, the tea. That's why we need to think ahead about what we need to offer them so that we can spend more money in Mauritius. Because knowing that we need to bring souvenirs for the year after.
Yes, good point. So evidence. So it's 2 things. One is gift giving. If I travel, I have to bring back a lot of gifts to my friends. So we need small things, not too expensive, where they might buy 20 items, so 20 the same 20 pieces and give to the 20 people working with them in the same office. So this is something 10 euro, 20 euro level, easy to transport, so same for everybody. So you need to have a big quantity. And then you need more prestigious things. You can give your boss or your father or your mother or some important people, and then things you buy for yourself as a memento for yourself, and maybe to put in your living room, so to your friends when they are coming. So I think the first thing is to see you have different reasons to buy souvenirs. Souvenir as a gift, souvenir as a thank you for the guy who signed that you can go on holidays, and souvenirs for yourself and to show to your friends, which is translated into how unique it has to be or not, how expensive it has to be or not. And the other simple point is, of course, as with all souvenirs, how easy or how difficult is it to transport it? So if we talk about ship models, and I also see that this is something very specially done here. It is possible to do this as this is a part of the Mauritian culture. Chinese, with the exception of this John Hill going to Mombasa, have not been so big seafarers. And if so, this is the people in the south of China. I think most of your customers are coming from the north and from the east of China, where sunshine is more important. So if you live in Guangzhou, you have sunshine at home. It's less attractive to go to a sunny place, and people from Beijing and Shanghai are more like Europeans looking for sunshine. So, and the people in the north, they have not much connection to ocean seafaring. But so it has to be handicraft more than. So if you say this is a model of the Groschbock, this is interesting for me as a German, or if it's a Golden Hind of Sir Francis Drake, interesting for British people, but Chinese people will have no idea what you're talking about. So, and the other question is how to transport it. So if you say, okay, we have checked out Chinese custom procedures, and if you buy this beautiful model, we ship it to China, and we can tell you it costs $255. So because we know what we have to do for this, then yes. If you say, well, this is a ship model that big, how do I transport it? No way. And maybe if I like it, then maybe I want to buy 3, because I have 3 good friends who might be interested in that, because maybe they're interested in models, because they have some models of cars and aircraft, and now I give them a model of a ship. They don't have that yet. So, but then maybe it's not just one. So, but of course you can think of other things. I mean, you do have the dodo. I mean, for you probably this is so totally old-fashioned and you can't hear it anymore. For the Chinese, this is new. This is an interesting story, and it's toys, children. Don't forget, in a Chinese family there's one child. And this one child gets love and affection and money, 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 20 aunties and uncles. So for the kid, nothing can be expensive enough and good enough. So if you have a very wonderful toy or different kind of toys made on the dodo theme, this will be very interesting for them. And new, for Chinese people this is new. So for you this is old hats and you can't see it anymore probably. But for the Chinese it will be new. So, and this is the easiest thing to do, what I can think of. And then of course, I saw in the bar we've just been, you have different kinds, this is rum, or what is this? Yeah, different kinds of rum with special things inside the bottles. This is what Chinese people know. In China you have all kind of schnapps of liquor with snakes and scorpions and all kind of stuff inside. Which is normally they all have only one usage, helping men. And this is honeymoon area. Come on. So this is certainly a good thing. And if this is something you can only buy here, wow, great. So Yes, this is yes, I can, because it's again something. Yes, because it is handmade here, and you can probably go there and watch how people do this. So you can take a photo of it, and you can be part of it, and nowhere else where you can buy that. So if you have this kind of things which are unique, that's very important. So I give you an example I learned recently is that Chinese tourists, when they come to Europe, at the duty-free shops, they often buy Chinese cigarettes when they go home. So because they know that this is their brand, they're smoking at home, 555 or Zhonghua or whatever, but they buy them in Europe. A, they are cheaper than in China because less taxes, but B, in Europe there is a tab on it saying smoking will kill you, or some kind. Now we in European Union we just decided there will be some very ugly photos of how a smoker's lung looks like and so this kind of stuff. And they buy this because it's a very nice way. If you put this cigarette box on the table and tell your friend, oh, have a cigarette, everybody can see, oh, this has been bought abroad, because in China we don't have that. So these stickers were not made for this purpose, but this is a way of bragging as well. Look, this cigarette is a Chinese cigarette, so you don't have to be afraid that you don't like the taste. It's what you know, but it is bought in a foreign country. So if you go to Dubai duty-free shop, they have a whole area as big as this area here, only with Chinese cigarettes, at least 10 different brands. And of course nobody else but the Chinese buy this when they go home. So to say this is something you cannot buy in China, that's why it is interesting. And so if you have special kinds of food stuff or liquor, this makes a fantastic gift. And if this is a story to come into this, that you can say, this is the liquor, the famous Corsair or Buccaneer so-and-so has always been drinking. The recipe comes from this story where there was a fight between the two pirates and the one had this. So there will be stories, if not, you make them up. If the Chinese is involved, even the better. So if you have a story to it, and it looks nice, and it's nicely packaged, very important, not just a bottle and package, then you can ask for a high price, because this will be something you cannot buy anywhere else. That's our. If you have, I don't know, if you have some, sorry, I don't know that. If you have some fruit which you have only on this island here, do some dried fruit, whatever is available there. And toys for children, they can be expensive. This is always very important. And yes, I mean, this is something the Chinese are looking for, because there is a need to bring things back. And if you don't offer this, they will be disappointed. And if you can personalize it, if this is something, well, ship models maybe it's too difficult to do, but is there something where you can involve them, where you can tell them, okay, we do in the hotel here, we do a 1 hour workshop where we show you how this liquor is done, how to cut these things in small pieces and then put it into the bottle, and then you can take a video and photos, and the Chinese can say, hey, I learned how to do this, and it gives them a certificate that now they're a master Mauritius rum with seahorses inside maker. Then they have something to show back home. So if this is, as I said, it is moving clearly from sightseeing to activity, and from buying something to doing something. Because if all your friends are rich, it's no point to say, hey, look, I bought another Gucci bag. Your friend will say, well, so what? I can buy 3 Gucci bags. That's no achievement. So, but if you say, hey, look, I did something with my own hands, I learned something. This is something I did and you did not. So this is something you can impress people with. So yes, souvenirs, certainly. This is a very good branch of earning more money from the same number of customers. And I think this is what we have to do. Keep the number of visitors on a certain level, not go across, but then of course earn as much money as possible from everybody who is taking up 1 square meter of environment. So the island is not so small after all.
There's a lot of Chinese customers. I think that one of our guests, Derek, is here. Would love to have one question to you about, please Derek, please come forward. He has interacted with lots with the Chinese CEOs, and we have started and we have been able to build up beautifully the promotion of Mauritius. So might be Derek, you can have one question if you have any.
I think he's answered all of them, Carl.
I don't think so. There's still some left, but thank you very much anyway.
Anyway, we wanted to thank you. The minister will join us for the dinner. And I think the dinner might be at 8 o'clock, I think. No? 8 to be 8 tonight. So we will going to be in a position to interact in a more friendly way. We have learned a lot about the outlook of the Chinese market, and we know that the challenges are there because the choice is the right choice between the volumes and quality, between spend and make it happen. So, but we do have to go with urgency, we do have to go with commercial reality. But thank you again. We have here with us the representative of Raven Island. She came expressly because our project within the Vanilla concept would be to have and help Chinese travelers hopping to Mauritius, going to Raven Island, helicopter trip, volcano, and back, and so on. But one most important thing is that we need to win the confidence issue. We need to showcase Mauritius in such a way that Mauritius looks always friendly, a quality destination, and that it is really value for money destination. This is it. And then of course we do have an emotional destination. We have so many things to see. We have different cultures. We have been able to set the right balance between, new markets and mature market. We should be able, in a position to keep it going, because the fact that Mauritius has been perceived to be so Frenchy has actually contributed to the success of Mauritius in different markets. So we will actually go and interact with you. We might send you some mails and so on, and we officially will actually establish a correspondence with you, and we might be in a position to join the team and teach other people how to market China. Thank you.
Thank you all.